This morning, I'm going to be discussing an issue from our social justice class. And in the social justice class, we're discussing the different methods of activism and organizing. And so our professor asked us to choose a biblical character in which we can emphaticate this type of methodology. And I chose Stephen. And so Stephen is a little known, mainly unknown biblical prophet who was also one of the first 7 deacons. But Stephen was also a didactic speaker and a historian. Very few believers or even non-believers know these things about Stephen. But he was truly a great vessel for God indeed. And so I picked the scripture up in Acts chapter 7, where Stephen is debating some church people. These church members, they were saying this and that, and these social injustice they were speaking of. And Stephen, being this didactic debater, skillful even, was debating them on these issues. And like most people, whenever you have someone who take you to task on a subject, they got angry. And so what they did was, and this is in Acts chapter 7, they took his argument and distorted it and took it to the Jewish council, the Sanhedrin. That's the high Jewish council. And so before the Sanhedrin, they were saying that he was guilty of blasphemy. And so in those days, in the early church, to be guilty of blasphemy would easily have you accused, arrested, and arraigned. And so as the scripture goes on, now Stephen is facing the Sanhedrin, and the judge asks him, Stephen, are these things so? But what comes out from Stephen is something profound, because Stephen could have gave a defense and a daring plea for his life. However, Stephen did the opposite. He gave an account. Now, according to the Jewish custom, it appeared that Stephen gave an account of Jewish history and culture. But Stephen was doing that and so much more. In fact, the history wasn't even the point. The point was that Stephen gave the history as a form of demonstrating that throughout Jewish history, God was with each and every individual that he called to do a certain purpose or task. And the same way with you. If God have called you to do something and he's placed it in your heart and the actions are before you, do it. God's will benefit your life. There's a saying that my old pastor friend used to say, and it was this: if it's God's will, you better believe it's God's bill. He'll pay the price.
Church boy!
This don't make no sense, Sean. Hey. I hope I bring you glory on this one, Father. Help me now.